Hi, everyone. Okay, we are live. This is Liesl from Artist Palette, and we are doing At the Pond. So I have my painting palette as usual, primary colors with black and white, and I like to reuse my plates to just mix colors and stuff. Maybe I'll mix it here. And then for brushes, many brushes you can use. I personally like these two. So it's like a flat, bright brush. It's a little bit frayed. It's okay. And then I have a round brush about a number 12 with a little pointy end. You can also have a detailed brush with you. And I think that's mostly what I'm going to be using for this one. I have a less frayed one, just a flat brush, which is good for making thin streaks with water if you want it nice and streaky, or if you want it less streaky and more blended, you don't need something like this, really. All right. So you can paint along with me and go at your own pace. Let's get started. Well, I'm just doing a little adjustment. Okay. So I am going to start with just some base coats, and then we're going to layer on top. I'm going to start with some green at the top and some sort of brownish color. And then we're going to layer and start making rocks on top. So it's going to look a little awkward at first, and you just have to trust the process. What I'm doing at the top is I'm taking some white, scoop of yellow, a little bit of blue. You can see I'm mixing a green. I like to add in a little touch of red or black, kind of give it an earthy green, brown it up, more olivey. All right. For the most part, I'm just giving it a basic outline of where I want my rocks to sort of be, just kind of dabbing along. And then I'm going to put in my green kind of sporadically, also just filling up space. And you can see my streaks. I'm just tapping and also doing little flicks at the same time, just dab, 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 or dab and flick. You can also change your greens as you go, which I really like to do. I'm going to add in more black, yellow, and blue, no more white, and it goes much darker. Like this. Now on this side, I have a little bit darker. You can just add some darkness, pockets of darkness anywhere else too. Maybe I'll add in a bit more blue. So I'm just taking a bit of blue, and now I have more evergreen, tealish mixed in on top of previous colors, in between new spots. And now maybe take a little bit of white on that. So I didn't change the color in the sense where I'm washing off my brush and mixing something new. I'm just kind of taking white and just layering over top. So you can change the direction sometimes if you want to try and do different things. You can, instead of going just one way, you can switch it the other way. All right. So I don't know if you've been watching me before, but if you like the blending brush, if you have something that you can just go to that's more of a round brush, you can just, it's dried and dip it in water. I just lightly tapped. If you really like things over blended, less textured overall, see that? Just almost like a blur. There. So let that sit for a minute. I'm going to put some brown for where the rocks are, and then I can add highlights, like highlights of light yellow and lighter greens, or even white, to give it just some brightness on the other side. Okay, so I'm using the same brush. Washed it off. And it doesn't have to be perfectly washed off, because brown, unless you have a premixed brown you want to use, you can use like a burnt umber, raw sienna. I'm going to take a scoop of yellow, mix it with some of my green, and a scoop of red, about equal parts, with a little bit of green. See how it kind of goes a bit brown already? I'm going to take a little bit of white, mix that in. So there's more of a brown. So that's kind of more of a raw sienna. If I add more red, you can get more of a reddish warm brown. All right, so putting it on here. There's really whatever you want your base coat to be. If you like it more of a reddish color, if you want it more of a yellowy color, all I'm going to do, start overlapping a little bit the green, so you can see I kind of went up a bit higher. So I'll just go a bit higher. And I'm doing almost like boulders stacked on top of each other, merged together. It can be any sort of shape because rocks tend to be like that. I'm going to go all the way just a little bit lower down here. Then I want to determine where I want to stop all of this. I think I want it to be somewhere like this. So I'm just doing straight lines, trying to make some sort of shape. So it's not all just straight across. It kind of goes up and back down. Okay. So it's like there's some boulders down here, and then it's further back. And this is all water. All right, so I'm filling it in choppy, just cross hatching or something like that. Ready? Give that a minute to sit. Right. You can also fill in some of the water as this is all drying. You can use your flat brush. You can use the same brush you're using before. Just giving it a good little rinse. Okay. For the water, I'm going to start with just some very light blue, and I'll add in a bit of teal. Whatever it is that you want to add. You can just do light blue. You can do more of like a sort of a pond where it's a bit greenish too. I'll let you decide, but white, I don't mind if the blue's touching a bit of yellow, sure. Just a touch of it, see, mostly white, a little bit of that, and then you can always darken it. What I want to do is just go back and forth. You can use the flat side of your brush, any flat brush. You can see I got a little bit of yellow in there, and I'm just going to let that be. It kind of looks like it's reflecting up there anyway, so that's kind of cool. Got that for free, didn't really have to try too hard. Don't mind if I touch the brown too a bit, because it, again, gives it that sort of reflective from the rocks and like a swampy sort of look, lake. Pond. So back and forth, long streaks, touch of water is good, but generous amount of paint just to fill it in. All right, there's my base coat. Okay, it's pretty dry. I can add in some little extra touches up into my leafy shrubbery area if you're ready for that. Okay, so I'm still using the flat bright brush. And you can darken up your green. So if you want to add a touch more black to some of your green, you can just dab in a little bit extra. Layered on top, it just goes a bit darker. If you want to use that blending brush after again, I'm not going to. I don't mind going a little bit on top of my brown. All good. Okay, just kind of making it look like between here, it's all just pretty dark overall. You don't need too much paint for this, by the way. So wipe off a lot of paint if you find that it's too clunky. Just light little taps. Bit random too. Nothing that I've done is really in particular, just mostly dark over here, and then washing this off, dabbing it dry. I'm going to add in some very light yellow. So white and a touch of yellow. So very little yellow. Very light yellow here. And I'm just going to add in almost like little pockets of sunlight kind of peeking through. That's the vibe that I guess I was going for. And you can wipe off the extra paint. Dry it off, and you can use a different brush or the same brush and just lightly tap around it. Give it a little slight blend, unless you want it super obvious and like that. You can also just change up your greens, a bit more yellow, white, and a touch of blue. Wiping off the paint again. I wipe off the paint because when I put it on, it doesn't look like it's, again, too thick. It's more just like a light layer over top. Taking a bit more white with it. If you want more contrast, just go much lighter, especially if it's already really dark, or just go more darker if you have too much brightness. I like the contrast where it's really dark and then really light. All right. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it like this. And now I'm going to go back to my rocks because I'm going to leave this alone. Just washing it off. It's up to you if you want to put more of these little circular things for light shining through. On the rocks, I'm going to start layering over top. It's very impressionist, very similar to this, vaguely making rocks. And I think what helps is more just that contrast again. So you have shadow, or absolute shadow with the black, and then you have some lighter colors to make it look like it's popping out with more of that rock color. And I gave it a bit of blue tones because I thought it was like a shale blue, cool color combination. Okay, so what I'm probably going to start with is outlining in a sense, without really outlining, the same brush, more just blue, and then layering some brown on top and putting black around it to give it that shape and shadow. So white, a little bit of blue, touch of black. So it's like a gray blue. Let's take one more touch of black. Okay, wiping off some extra paint just for now. And let's start with, like, there's a kind of an obvious one here at the top. I'm just going to pull down and not blend it or anything. Looks like a sort of boulder. I didn't make a circle. I just gave it more roundness to give it the round shape. I'm just going to do that here. Sometimes they're just randomly shaped. They're not anything too round. They're kind of oddly shaped. So I'm going to just blob sometimes, leaving some gaps. So a little bit of a blob, a gap, a little bit of a blob, a gap. And go and fill up as much space as you want. So I left, see, this is all going to mostly be black. I can always just add more if I want to later. And over here, same sort of thing. There. So what I could do is just put in some blue and stuff, add to the water while it just rests for a minute. Blue. And I'm just going to streak it from the side. I gave it more shadow on the edges, even in the bottom. Do the other side a little bit too. I'm going right up to my rock, so I'm just going right up to it, letting it go there. Wash it off. Dab it a bit dry. I'm going to take a bit of white, and then I can go down the middle. Just add in some streaks of white down the middle. Keeps it brighter where the water is coming down from that waterfall down here. And more in the open. Also looks a bit more streaky and flowy with water. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to now just dab in some more dark brown and or black where I want my rocks to be and give it highlight with brown afterwards. So I'm going to start with black. And again, I'm going to wipe off a little extra paint. You don't need too much. So I'm going to just very loosely shape a bit around my rocks. Lightly dab, doesn't come off too thick. Still, some of the brown is still showing or through, it's kind of transparent through. When in doubt, you can just tap a little bit of black, which works. You can put a couple little streaks along the edge too. Yeah, I can still see a little bit of brown in between. A little bit at a time. Very loose, not trying too hard to shape around perfectly or anything like that. Not at all. Okay. Yeah, I'm washing that off again. So what I'll do is maybe switch to my actual flat brush and take blue and a tiny touch of black. So it's more blue than black. And just get the shadow started. Little flicks towards the center from the rocks to intensify that bit of shadow. Pretty choppy, more just around the sides at the top below the rocks. If it's not going dark enough, just do a second coat later when it's a bit more dry. Otherwise it just kind of blends with what is already wet. It doesn't really go much darker. Okay, washed it off. Just letting that sit for about 30 seconds. Probably a good idea before we put in more layers of some brown to give the rocks more shape and determine if we need to make any adjustments. Okay. Almost there. I think the important thing with this painting too is definitely take a step back, a few steps back with the style, because it can be hard to see how it's developing and looking when you don't do that. All right, I'm going to start mixing a bit of brown again. It doesn't have to be the same brown. It can be a completely different brown. You can always change your browns. So this is my brown spot that I had mixed. I'm going to add in some white. You can start fresh with just white and then a little bit of yellow and red. If you're mixing on the same spot, great. You can always add a touch of black. The more black you add, the more gray brown it looks. If you like it less gray brown, add more yellow and red. If it's too green looking or yellowy, a bit more red. If it's too purpley red, add more yellow. All right, so wiping off again. Let's test it out. All right, I'm going to, I don't know, just swipe on my rock. You can use the flat side, you can use the thin side. And I think what's important is just sort of have fun. Just follow the groove in the shape that you want your rock to flow. Even if you want little ones, just like little streaks here. Even at the bottom, you can add more rocks. So even if you didn't have a rock there, just add another one or make something bigger. Okay, and I know I want my waterfall here, so I'm not really doing much here. I'm just sort of leaving that alone. Blue, white, touch of black, especially if you want to revive a little bit of that gray blue. Wiping off the paint. Okay. Going to touch up on a bit of black, and I put white in the for more highlights, and I touched up with one more last layer, some sort of brown. So just be patient with that. A little bit of black, and you can just touch up on the shaping once more, or shrink the size of some of your rocks, or make some of them sort of disappear. All right, there we go. Going back to more brown, white, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, black. And it's definitely more of a gray brown, but it's kind of cool. I don't mind it. You can add more yellow and red if you want it less gray. But the gray brown is pretty nice. It's also a different brown. Like when you mix a new brown, you don't need to have the same exact brown. It's also nice to just for adding more texture. Okay, so if it's not quite different, just add a bit more of something, change it up. More black, more red. If you have something darker, you can put more streaks on like more at the bottom of your rocks to give it deeper shadows just on the bottom, so where the top of your rocks are lighter. If I go along the bottom here, just add more black. And it just gives it a darker, deeper color. And if you're wondering, well, where's the bottom of my rocks? Well, you just kind of make it up. It looks like one angle is hitting more of a light than the other. And you can see if you want to add a bit more to it, it adds a bit more of a shapely look. It's pretty cool. I'm just going to add a bit more black in here in between. Okay, I'm going to take just white. I don't mind if it's touching a little bit of blue. Totally fine. I'm going to go towards the top part. So the bottom was more here, or the top part. If you want, you can even use your finger to blend it in a little bit if you think it's a bit too stark, but I think it's nice. Depends on how shiny you want your rocks to look. So it's not like you have to put it right on the edge. Sometimes the highlight can be right in the middle or towards the top, but not directly at the top. There we go. And take that step back. I think it does it does wonders with this highlight. It may not seem like it at first. Let's see if this is dry. It's pretty dry. maybe you might need to wait longer, you can add in the start of your waterfall. I'm just going to take a little bit. This is still my frayed sort of bright brush. I'm going to just very lightly kind of like fold it over and wherever you want to put it, right? So it's like, don't force things just because I'm doing it. It has to look good and right in your painting. If you want to go around a rock, you're like, oh, I found a little opportunity to flip it around a rock, do that. It picks up a bit of your brown. That's okay. It kind of also adds in a little bit of shadow, but do a final white coat after, maybe at the end. Maybe I'll have it here. Okay, I'm not going to mess around with that too much. The more you mess around with it, the more it turns brown. You got to leave it alone. And then you can touch up with some not too light, or you can go to more of a darker brown. You can just lightly just dab in to make it look like it's got some rocks engulfing the area, like it's going kind of in between these rocks. All right, a couple of dabs here on the side. Okay. Leaving that water to dry. And then we can kind of take some time to focus on the water down here and putting in maybe a couple lily pads with some flowers. Let's see. Oh, if you want to add in some teal, or even if you want to mute the painting a little bit, you can add some blue-gray. So it looks like it's reflecting a bit of blue-gray from the rocks and stuff. That was, remember, the blue, touch of black, and some white. Adding a bit more white. I'm going to take a bit of blue and some black. You can go a bit darker just along the edges if you want. Okay, so I'm going to add in a touch of more black, just picking up a bit more black on my brush, just along the edges to help with the shadowy parts around the rocks. Short little streaks. There, that's a bit more grayish overall. And once again, you can take blue, white, and a touch, small little tiny dot or speck of yellow if you want to add a bit of teal in here. I'm going to take some white and just around where this is, I kind of want to do like a highlight of white where the waterfall is. Looks like it's got a bit more brightness coming down right here. Now you can do more when it's more dry. It's hard to put white on top if it's not really going too white when it's wet underneath. All right. So I'm going to add in some lily pads, and you can streak in some green in the bottom area where your lily pads are going to be. So I'm going to do more of a mucky sort of green, similar to up here, on top of my brown, yellow, and blue. About equal parts is fine. And a small touch of black. Just wisps of the green color. I want some lily pads here. I'm going to do a couple green streaks there. Maybe some up the middle a bit. And a lot at the bottom, but still very chalky. You can still see a lot of the blue in between. You can add a touch of black, extra black if you want it more muddied, and some darker greens. All right. Washing that off. And then we can put in some of our lily pads if you want to use the same brush. Sure, yeah, let's use the same brush. In terms of color, to start, I'm going to do more of a base green and then put a little shadow and a little highlight on top. Let's do yellow, blue, and a big scoop of white. I'm just mixing on top of the existing green, or yeah, the existing green I had. Okay, I'm going to wait about 3 seconds, and I will be right back and start the lily pads. Okay, let's do, so I'm going to use more of the side of my brush. You don't need to use it straight on. I'm just going to do more of a flat, sort of ovally shape, thin and ovally. Let's do some down here. Down here, it's going to be bigger. So maybe I'll just press and use the flat side of my brush and just press harder. And I'm doing like 1, 2, 3. I'm imagining I'm making a couple at a time, even though it looks very blobby. Maybe a couple over here. Leave a little gap, do some more here. And maybe another couple up here. There. I think that's good. No need to, I guess, overcrowd. maybe one over here. There we go. All right, I'm going to take white. I didn't even wash it off. I'm going to give a little highlight at the top, more of the top parts. Doesn't have to be directly at the very top, but just a little accent. Then wash it off. Black, add it with some yellow and blue again, but no white this time, much darker. You can use a different brush anytime you want to do that. I'm going to see, I'm just kind of cusping around the bottoms to give it more shadow. Don't be afraid to, again, not make it perfect, just lightly wisp it even outside to give it more of a streaky, reflective look underneath it, like there's some shadow underneath the lily pads. And then you can always put in another color of maybe more of a bluish green. So blue, a little bit of yellow, touch of white to break up some of the color you want to just add on top. Okay, this is my black again, just touching up on that. Black. Okay, cool. That was my round brush. Felt like it was easier to get in there with a different brush. There's some pink or purpley color that I added in to make it look like it's reflecting some of the lotus flowers. I'm going to take a bit of white and a touch of red, tiniest touch of blue, like a speck of blue. Careful with blue, it actually goes super purple and blue if it's too much. I know that I want a flower here, so I'm going to just streak it in. A couple little streaks. You can add more red if you want more of a pop of color. And I know I want another flower here. It's also nice just to break up all this same color to put in some softer pink or something. So that was in between, on top of my existing streaks in the water, not on top of the not on top of the lily pads. And I'll show you how I do the flowers. I find it pretty easygoing, actually. If you just start with white, or white with a touch of red, so it can be the softest blush pink sort of ever. For example, down here, wherever you kind of are like, I don't really like this spot, just put a flower there. It's probably the best way to go. One, take some more paint. A generous amount of paint is pretty good. 1, 2, just kind of flicking from, you're making more of like a U shape, but you're flicking upwards. So it's like a little cup. And then I flick upwards and also 2 at the bottom. I let the texture sit and I layer more pink on top. You can also wait for it to fully dry if you prefer that. Here, since it's further away, I'll probably go a bit smaller. Okay, so you can do more of a cup shape, flick it at the top. You can do two at the bottom, a little blob here and a little blob there, like more of a V shape. See right here in this one, you can do more of a V shape. And forget about the ones at the bottom. Let that sit, and we're going to layer on top afterwards. I'm going to touch up with my white up here. Now that's dry. And a couple of streaks at the bottom. You can also take white and a touch of black, so more of a gray or a darker gray, and break up some of your white by streaking in from the bottom up. Give it more of a flow. If you like the fuller look where it's like full of water, you can do less of that and just more white at the top. So it looks like it's really pouring down. And a little trick, if you want to make it look like there's more rocks in between, just lightly dab in to break it up. More of a brownish color. So it looks like there's a rock breaking up some of your waterfall. Can be dangerous. You could totally not like it, but at least you can paint over it. All right. Any touch-ups you want to do on your lily pads, you can. If you just paint it all like a light gray blue again, you can get rid of a lot of things. I think the only thing sometimes is using green, dark green, to give it a bit more shaping around your lily pads if you want to separate some from others. Like it looks like there's a couple layers. That might be, or you can just, just sort of give it more of like that. See down here, like a little crease, like that open look. Just a couple touches might bring it a long way if that's the look you're going for. And that's all it really needs sometimes. And we can also use a bit of dark green to streak down the stems for your lily pad, or sorry, your lotus flowers. Just very light, maybe with a detailed brush. And try not to mess around with that, just leave it. All right. So let's put in on top, you can do another coat of your light pink, or you can do a hot pink. I'm going to take more red. So red, touch of white. In the middle, you can just kind of blob it and make it look like it's mostly a white flower. You can also just blob it in the middle. You can also do stuff like making the petals. A couple little flicks, that's all it is. So here, I'm just going to lightly flick it upwards, letting just the texture sit. Lots of paint. Just like that. You can add a touch of blue if you want to go a bit more purple for a different one. Flick, 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 about 3, and then one on the sides at the bottom. And that's pretty much it. Let's see, I'm going to take a bit of white again, and you can just touch up with more white if you want the petals on the edges to be more white. But take that step back. I'm not blending it. I like the texture to sit again. So if you keep going over it, you lose like the direction of your paint where it's going, and it looks like it's got more of that petals sticking out, that sort of thing. But if you need to make any changes, let it fully dry first. Then you'll have better control. So different style, a bit more loose, and hopefully that's fun. I used more paint overall just for creating texture on the flowers. We can do the same with the rocks. I hope you like the rocks, and we love seeing results. So just show us on Artist Palette Durham on Facebook, and you can show off what you've done or your interpretation. It's fun to try new things, even if it's not really your style, so that you can just get used to doing different techniques and seeing what you like. We have lots of events and tutorials and stuff on our website and coming up on YouTube, so you can check us out at artistpaletedurham.com, and just subscribe to our channel if you want to keep watching our videos and see what else is coming up. I have what's coming up next is more of a lavender painting, and I really like it. I like the color combinations, similar style, but yeah, more of a full-on landscape. Anyways, thanks for painting with me today. Have a good day. Bye, guys.